So chatting a little bit, I love talking to you a little bit about the mortgage numbers and that mortgage two-step that we're going to be coming out with. And one of the reasons I want to get that information to you is I just want you to realize where so many people don't think about the fact of what is the interest rate doing to our economy? What is the interest rate doing to our market? And let's take a look at some of these different numbers, and just to give you a little bit of an idea of where these numbers work out to. So I just threw into my handy dandy calculator right here. I put in an $800,000 loan, and I put in a 6.5% interest rate, and it comes back and tells me that the monthly payment is $5,056 a month. Now let's put in that same calculator a 6% interest rate. And I don't know exactly where interest rates are. And I'm not giving any kind of APRs on this because all I'm trying to do is educate you on what interest rates do over time for people. So let's put in that same $800,000 loan, and let's put in a 6% interest rate and see what our payment comes out to on that one. So the payment comes out on that one, on the first one, comes out to $5,056. The second at 6%, same 800,000, comes out at $4,796. And just for fun, let's put in there a 5.5% rate. And I'm just throwing numbers in there. They don't really mean anything other than just a little bit of an example for you. At a 5.5% rate, we're now looking at $45.42. And I'm doing all this on the fly. So I'm not prepared to go through and give you the specifics or the exacts on all these things. But what I want you to understand is take a look at going from 6.5 to 5.5. Yes, I understand that we all want to save as much money as we can, but planning, and I'll share this with you. I've used this terminology many, many times. Strategy beats rate always. Strategy beats rate always. What does that mean? Well, understanding where these numbers are coming from and what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm just looked at it real quick. I'm doing some of these things on the fly. And I look at that 6.5% rate. And then I look at the 6% rate. And I've got one more number I want to plug into this whole mess. So the difference between a 0.5% of interest rate is a little over $250 a month. That's what we're saving. Now I know $250 a month is a lot of money. But here's the issue. So if you're paying 25% or 30% on your credit cards, and you're doing that, and if you make a minimum payment, you'll get them paid off in about 300 years, give or take. Here's the idea. Roll it all into a new mortgage if you've got the equity on your real estate, on your property. Now, I'm going to say something that nobody's going to really tell you. Ask your lender or your home loan strategist to call us 800-306-1990. We'll put together a strategy for you. Say, what would it cost me? And I know it's going to cost higher interest to get a no-cost loan. Now, there's really no such thing as a no-cost loan. What a no-cost loan means is that the costs are built into the interest rate. But let's just say that right now the market's at 6%. I don't know whether it is or isn't. And let's just say that if we go with a 6.5%, you can get a no-cost loan. Okay, so that no-cost loan is costing you an extra $260 a month. That's about $3,100 for a year. Okay, so you're not going to pay it. What's going to end up happening is you're going to look at restructuring if the interest rates come down as we forecast. There's no guarantees, but history says the interest rates will come down. And let's just say that we go and we get that 5.5% interest rate. Well, you're going to save $510 a month because you're going from 6.5 to 5.5. So you're going to save $510 a month more than where you're already saving by doing the restructuring. Think about that. So now you're looking at about 6 months to pay for the new loan. We don't want to build that in the RSR two-step. We don't build that in because this is the loan we're going to keep for a longer period of time. And I don't know what longer means. It could be 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. I don't know, because as a home loan strategist and a certified liability advisor, what our team does is consistently monitor your liabilities. Your mortgage is one of your biggest liabilities. So if that 5.5 that you get becomes, okay, well, the market goes down to 4.5, well, our team's going to call you and say, hey, you know something? You want to save another $510 a month? Got about a 6-month break even, give or take. Well, of course you will. And now we've just lowered you down to a 4.5% loan. And if it goes down again, you do it again. Now, I know you're going to say, Ron, this sounds self-fulfilling. You like doing these things because it's going to help you and you're going to do more loans. Well, yeah, you're right. We do more loans that way. But the bottom line is it's in your best interest. We don't need to do loans that's in our best interest. We do a lot of loans. But the idea is, how do we do more loans that help you? And if you don't have somebody watching these things for you, do you know this stuff on your own? Do you know what your blended household interest rate is? Most people don't. Well, how do you even calculate it? Well, we've got a special calculator that will put that in there. So it's just a matter of getting that and putting all your liabilities in, and we figure out what is your blended household interest rate. May come out that you may not even know it and say, well, Ron, I've got a 3% mortgage. And I say, yeah, very good, but you've got a 9% blended household interest rate. Who cares about a 3% mortgage when you're paying all this extra money? If you don't understand those things, let's set up a strategy call. 800-306-1990. 800-306-1990. One of the team is more than happy to help you. So let's chat a little bit, maybe a lot of bit. We're going to talk about Chapman University, and Chapman came out with their economic forecast last week. And as you know, I did go to Chapman College. It was before it was a university. But we're going to look at some of the charts that Chapman shared in their forecast. And again, I love looking at Chapman's numbers because not only is their forecast is at my alma mater, but if you look at the accuracy rankings, Chapman's always right near the top. And their accuracy rankings forecast of real GDP 2004 to 2021, Chapman was number 1. Morgan Stanley was number 2. Northern Trust was number 3. So gives us credibility for using Chapman. UCLA was number 8 out of 18. If we look at the accuracy ranking for real GDP, unemployment, inflation, housing starts, again, Chapman number 1, Northern Trust was number 2, Morgan Stanley number 3, UCLA was number 14 out of 17 on this chart. So let's take a look at some of these different numbers and see what makes sense. Now, Chapman in this forecast, they compared a lot of things to 1974, I believe it was, the recession of 74. And what they looked at was the 10-year T-bond less the Fed funds rate. So they looked at that going all the way back to 1965, but they focused on the 74 recession just to use it as an easy example. But going all the way back to 1965, whenever the 10-year Treasury is less than the Fed funds rate, Now, should I remind you of what I told you a little bit earlier? So let's take a look and we'll see where the 10-year Treasury, we know right now is at, if I can get that chart back on my screen, 10-year Treasury is at 3.596. I wonder if I've got a chart that I can grab real quick on comparing these. I'm not seeing it real quick, so otherwise I would give it to you right now. But what I want you to understand, let me look and see if I can figure out the Fed funds rate. They just changed the Fed funds rate. So I think it's 4 to 4.25 is where they're sitting right now. 4.25 to 4.5. So let's use the lower number, 4.25, and we're going to compare that to the 10-year Treasury at 3.59. Remember, 10-year Treasury being lower than the Fed funds rate, so we're obviously, about 65 basis points lower. What does that tell us according to Chapman University? Well, going back to 1965, that tells us that within 6 months, we will be in a recession, according to Chapman's historical numbers. So we're looking at 6 months is where we're going to be right there. 10-year bond less the Fed funds rate. So the big issue there, we're already seeing some of this. The housing starts, that's a big forecaster. We're starting to see that some in the residential investment, housing starts has already started to drop. So one of the things about that that's good, and a lot of people will say, well, Ron, how is a drop in housing starts? How can that be good? Well, the reason it's good is that means there's going to be less supply. So remember, supply and demand drives everything. There's not a catalyst for somebody that has a 3% mortgage to sell their house unless there's some life event. The life event means somebody passes on, somebody gets divorced, somebody has a relocation. Those are life events that sometimes happen. So those things force people to sell. That's the reason somebody would sell a 3% mortgage to go and buy something else, other than the RSR two-step that we spoke about earlier. So the bottom line here is not going to get a lot of new houses coming on the market, and there's got to be a catalyst for somebody to sell. So that means supply is going to be low. So supply being low, now we have to look at the demand side. Well, those house sellers that don't have to sell, they're not going to be a buyer. So that's not going to help our demand. But wait a second. Young people are getting older. They're starting their own households. That's called household formation. So those are going to be buyers. That's going to help demand. We're going to have people retiring. That's going to help demand. We're going to have relocations. I told you that people are leaving California. Chapman will put that in their forecast also, that people are leaving California. That helps demand. So we've got all these catalysts for demand and not a lot of new supply. That tells us we've got some strength right there on the market there's strength in the market for holding prices firm. So let's continue our conversation on the forecasting that we've been talking about. Great information there. So Chapman University, we got some information from them. Key there is the 10-year T-bond being less than the Fed funds rate. So we're already in that point right now. So that tells us 6 months we'll be in recession. Got to remember, it takes 6 months for the Federal Bureau of Economic Research to tell us that we were in a recession. So, you're already there. Residential investment and consumer spending in 1974 was below water, and we're watching and forecasting third quarter of 2020, right now, the fourth quarter that we're in right now, and the first quarter of 23 and through the third quarter of 23. We're looking at being underwater, as according to Chapman's forecast. Real GDP, this is the one that is going to really hurt some people, many people. Real GDP. So remember, the definition of a recession historically has been 2 negative quarters of GDP. Well, we're looking at, we already had 2 this year. They didn't want to call it a recession because that's not convenient. But we're looking at going into 2023, and if Chapman's forecast is correct, by the second quarter of 2023, our real GDP should be down about 6%. Now, that's a steep number, but that means we're going to be in recession basically from the beginning of 23 all the way till about the end of 23. We may be coming out of it right near the end of the year. And we're just watching that because that's just personalized savings is dropping. Every number that we can find, disposable income is flat. The personal saving rate is down in every manner that we look at. Credit card spending is up. People are living on their credit cards. These are all numbers coming out of the Chapman forecast. Now, I did hear a comment this morning from one person on one of the business channels, and their basic comment was, hey, watch what's going on. A lot of CEOs are saying right now, we're not going to really look at getting rid of employees. If somebody leaves, we're not going to replace them. But we're not looking at getting rid of firing people because it's too hard to get them back and retrained. So that's going to be a hit on the corporate income side of what's going on. So be aware of that. Now, the next one that I did look at is Altos Research, and they did their report. They do a report every month. They give us updates on the housing industry. Now, you know that you can get a copy of your zip code, what's going on in the world for yourself. Go to RSRANAlist.com, I think it is. RSRANAlist.com. Let me just double check that. RSRANAlist.com. So what is that going to do for you? Well, I guess I've got it backwards. Josh, what's the right thing on that one? RSRListANA.com. RSRListANA.com. What happens there? You're going to go in there and it's going to ask you to put in your name and email address. And it's going to give you a report for Anaheim 92807 or 92808. I know you don't live there. Maybe you do, but for the most part, you probably don't live there. But once you get that first report, you can put in any zip code in the United States and see what's happening with real estate prices in that area. So go to RSRListANA.com, RSRListANA.com, and get the report and find out what's going on before you even think about doing a price reduction on your home. Make sure you're checking that out.